We all know the frantic professional. They sprint through the office, obsess over minor details, and sweat through every presentation, only to be constantly challenged and overlooked by those around them. It's a recurring pattern in the modern workplace. Hard work, on its own, doesn't seem to correlate with recognition. If your effort isn't perceived by the hierarchy, it effectively stays invisible. Compare that to the effortless executive. They walk into a room and the atmosphere shifts. They command respect immediately, often long before they've shared a single data point or plan. This suggests that beyond their actual skills, there is an invisible layer of perception doing the heavy lifting, shaping how their talent is weighed by everyone else in the room. Robert Greene identifies this as a strategic asset. In Law 5, he states, "So much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life." Looking at the judgment section, Greene argues reputation is a tool that allows you to intimidate and win through image alone. When you carefully craft how you are seen, that reputation acts as a vanguard, clearing the path for your goals before you even arrive to negotiate. Building this power requires a narrow focus. A strong reputation is almost always anchored to one simple, sterling quality, like unmatched efficiency, total honesty, or relentless cunning. This is evident in the career of Henry Kissinger. He cultivated a singular reputation for ironing out differences, which meant his presence in a negotiation made a peace treaty seem like a certainty before the talking even started. On the battlefield, General Erwin Rommel used the same principle. He was well known for cunning and deceptive maneuvering, so much so that entire cities would evacuate at the mere rumor that he was approaching. Looking at these kanks moving across the desert, we see the physical reality, but Rommel's reputation was the force multiplier. It did the psychological work of defeating the enemy before a single shot was fired. Anchoring your identity to one overpowering quality creates a calling card that places rivals and targets under a kind of spell. An established reputation acts as a filter for every action you take. The ancient Chinese story of Mi Zhu Sha shows how the exact same behavior can lead to a reward or a prison cell, depending entirely on the lens of the viewer. When Mi Zhu Sha was a court favorite with a high reputation, he once handed his ruler a half-eaten peach. Because his standing was so positive, the ruler interpreted this as a profound act of love. But years later, after his reputation had faded, the ruler looked back on that exact same peach and reframed it as an act of supreme arrogance, a crime worthy of punishment. This diagram illustrates the mechanical advantage of a high reputation. When an identical action passes through the high filter, it's converted into a positive outcome. But without that protection, the same action is judged as a fatal flaw. In this sense, reputation is a reality distortion field. It literally rewrites how your mistakes are recorded by history. Knowing the value of this shield, your defensive protocol during an attack is simple. Never react with anger. Defensiveness signals that you are insecure about your standing. Instead, you take the high road. You let your established calling card absorb the blow like a physical barrier. But you can also go on the offensive. This aerial photograph shows the American Museum, which P.T. Barnum secured by strategically dismantling the reputation of his rival, Peel. As detailed in the text here, Barnum launched a subtle letter-writing campaign to ruin Peel's financial reputation. By opening holes in his rival's credibility, he forced a stock collapse and bought the museum for himself. A masterful professional uses their reputation to absorb incoming fire, while letting public opinion do the work of hanging their enemies. This shift in perspective turns you from a passive, overworked employee into a strategic architect of your own professional image. You don't need to fight for every inch of ground in every meeting. Instead, you can invest in a calling card that does that fighting for you. Reputation is not optional. If you do not actively define and guard your image, your rivals will gladly define it for you. In a competitive landscape, a guarded reputation is more than a social asset. It is the primary moat that makes your career untouchable.